Hello and welcome to the first season of our brand new series of The Next Marketing with AJ, as in me. You have known me as a physician, as an entrepreneur, as an author. Now, through this series, you would see me as an interviewer and a podcaster as well. In the first episode, I am excited to welcome my dear friend Harjot Singh, who is the Global Chief Strategy Officer at McCann Worldgroup. Harjot, I have known as such a simple person, but full of knowledge and enthusiasm and creativity. So, if you are passionate about how to strike the right balance between strategy and creative, this episode is just right for you. Enjoy the series. Thank you, Harjot, for being a part of the show. I think the objective is to bring out the best in the world of advertising because there is so much that the world has not seen and how far the best can go because we have already seen the best. What is the next that will come out from this best is what is the objective from this session. So, welcome again. Do you want to introduce yourself?
No, I mean, you've introduced me, and I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to be sitting across from you on the other side. And, I love the fact that we're talking.
So, the theme for today is like connection versus calculation, right? Or how you fondly call it as magic versus maths.
Yes.
I really like this theme. So, wanted to hear your thought behind this theme and what do you really see this emerging as?
What's true in life is true in advertising. You know, every time you are drawn to something, someone, some concept, it's because in equal measure, you can have a sense of possibility, the excitement of possibility, and some level of reassurance of certainty at the same time. And I think that's what great advertising does. That's what good work does. It can excite you with possibility and reassure you with some level of certainty as well. And I think getting that balance right is so important because as strategists, those are the kinds of solutions that make us valuable to our clients. You know, if you can go to a client and tell them, I have something that allows you to excite people with the sense of possibility with your brand, but also reassure them with some level of certainty because you know for sure that you'll get this right. That's the balance, that I was talking about.
It's interesting how I've spoken to different people and different people define magic so differently, right? So what do you see that as the magic? Is it the insight, understanding those people as the magic? Is it the idea is the magic? Or is it the execution that is the magic?
When you go and see magic as a child, as a person, when you're enamored by magic, what is it? Is it the trick? Is it the context? Is it the rabbit that came out of the hat? Or is it the apparatus? Or is it just how you felt? So I think magic really is about making you feel something in a way that surprises you yourself about your about your capacity to imagine something. So if something can surprise you with your own capacity to imagine what's possible, that's magic. So when you see an idea and you're like, you know what, I never thought I could feel that way about something. If it changes the way you feel about something, or it gives you something entirely new to think about that you had never ever thought about. So it can change existing ideas, or it can give you completely new ideas, both of which, as a human being, you come face to face with your own capacity to be able to see and imagine something new, feel something new. And that to me is magical. So, sometimes it's the visual stimulus. Sometimes it could just be an idea, but I hate to think that it's just one thing.
How do you see that changing from, let's say, when you started the advertising, probably 100 years ago?
I know. It looks like that.
To now, what is the change that you have seen in the magic?
as you described.
The reason brands exist, that hasn't changed. But the thing that's changed is the delivery mechanism. So when we started in this business, I think there was this sense of the media environment. Let's just look at that. It was a one to many. Like we had one big, huge medium, broadcast, or whether it was print. Growing up in India, we had Doordarshan, which was our big broadcast TV network, which like over 1 billion people watched. You had a captive audience. And I think the thing that was very interesting about that time was there were 2, 3 things. Number one, you had a one-to-many media model. You knew that you could actually get something and reach a lot of people at once. You had the ability to assume that you had a captive audience. You could change the channel, you couldn't skip an ad. So in some ways that you had a captive audience. If you were going to go just before a big national soap or something, like I remember, I don't know if you think back on our days when there was a big TV show, if you were like watching a Sunday movie, or if you're watching Hum Log, remember that show? If you had that, and then you had commercials before that, you knew you'd get everyone on it. And so I think there were fewer one-to-many, very powerful. The media environment, I would say, was like that. Was changed over the years at a very basic level. I don't mean to make this very reductive, but at a very basic level, we've gone from one to many to many to many. And I think that has opened up so many opportunities for us and also created so many challenges, because you can't think of consumers or people that you want to engage with as an audience anymore. They don't sit there as passive beneficiaries. Audiences now, the only way to think about them is that they become communities, because they live as communities in different ecosystems. And that continues to increase and increase and increase and increase. So from being able to regale and entertain and captivate audiences, now we have to really excite and earn value with communities on a micro level, but at the same time have something that is, interesting at the broadest level. And the other thing I feel like the biggest change has been that, we talked about aspiration, because that was such an important language in our business, wasn't it? Brands wanted to be aspirational. They had an idea about wanting to kind of, make you feel like this would, the inclusion of this in your life was an elevated life, or was going to in some way be an aspirational point of view. They had that. Now the conversations, again, at a very reductive level, we moved from being about aspiration to much more about authenticity. People want that. So that changes the playbook. Like if you don't think of, you go from audiences to communities, from aspiration to authenticity. And the other thing is, we remember the time we used to call people targets, because they were targets. You could actually get there and target them. But I don't think we could ever refer to someone as a target anymore. Nobody likes being shot at. So now you just have to kind of reimagine what your job is. So I think those are some big changes that have actually, pushed us to be more human, be more creative, be more imaginative in the way we actually navigate all these challenges, and continue to prove the kind of value that we are here to create for clients. It's a lot more complex than it was. And brands, therefore, have to operate from a much more universal and human playbook. When I started in the business, in the creative briefs, there was always a thing we were taught, like, what is the brand's point of difference? What is the brand's point of difference? There is still a premium on a point of difference, I get it. However, that was the North Star at the time. It was, what is the brand's point of difference? And I think we've evolved to a time now where we ask ourselves, what is the brand's point of view? Like, that's much more compelling now. And people expect the brand to, engage them with a point of view versus a point of difference. So I think now we're in a point where your most compelling and captivating point of difference is your point of view. It's not the fact that you can wash clothes whiter and faster or whatever that is, because there were fewer brands too when we were growing up. So I think now that's also happened.
So before we move to maths, right? I think there's a lot of magic that we have done. Now let us assess the math. Let's do a quick rapid fire round. Few questions, right? And you have to just give the first response that comes in your mind. Funniest brief that you ever received from a client?
Funniest brief. Can we come back to this one? I'll think of it. Yeah.
Most embarrassing feedback that you ever heard on the magic?
The most embarrassing feedback has been my 2-year-old could have come up with that.
An idea you're most proud of?
I got to be part of a team that invented a new potato chip.
If not advertising, then what?
Probably the arts. I would have either been a journalist or a writer, or I've been in theater.
One person that you admire the most, and it can't be me.
There are so many trailblazers, and the person that comes to my mind, just because I was just reading something she wrote earlier this morning, is Cindy Gallup.
Nice. You want to come back to the funniest brief now?
The funniest brief ever. You know what, Harshit? I don't think this is the answer you're looking for, but I feel like I've never received a brief that I thought was really funny, because I can't think of any, because every time clients brief you on something, they have so much at stake, and there's just so much money, and there are jobs at stake, and so I really struggle to think of something where the brief was funny. So I'm going to really have to think about this.
Okay. So now let's move to the maths bit of it.
Yeah.
Right. And often at times, maths is kind of ignored, and the focus becomes on the magic only, right? But without maths,
Yes,
it won't work out, right? In any way. So talk to me about the evolution of maths that you have seen from then to now.
I think the biggest evolution of maths, or the mathematical side of things we've seen, is firstly in the importance of proving effectiveness across a gamut of categories. I think the importance of effectiveness has never been greater in being able to deliver and prove the value of the work we make. So that's our currency. There's a renewed focus on that. If you look at interestingly, if you see, I was reading somewhere that in the last 20 some years, the percentage to which the intangible brand drives market cap has grown 80 some percent. So almost 80% of market cap now is driven by intangible value of brand, which is like how people feel when they think about the brand. What does it conjure up? About 20, 30 years ago, if I'm correct, it was the other way around. Most of market cap was driven by things like supply chain, R&D, product differentiation, all of that. So basically, it's one way of saying that the brands become more important than ever. At the same time, there are fewer and fewer marketing people in the boardroom. And so this is a perfect storm. The brand's more powerful than it ever has been, yet there are fewer marketing people and more finance people in the boardroom. So we have to speak that language. We have to understand that language. And that's a language of logic. That's a language of math. That's a language of proving beyond reasonable doubt that the investment you make in the brand pays, creates, and delivers value in a way that you cannot deny, in a way that actually delivers the kind of commercial impact that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have if you hadn't made these investments. So the mathematical sophistication and being able to kind of like discount things, attribution, and then be able to kind of measure, optimize, and track on a very kind of regular and immediate basis, the ability to kind of do very precise things very quickly and at scale. So precision, at speed, at scale, all those things have become more and more important. If you look at how much more econometric modeling has become part of the marketing mix, that's become very important as well. If you look at how creative data and creative technology are kind of, intersecting, creativity intersects with technology and data more than it ever has since we've been in this business. So these are all kind of indicators, if you will, about the importance of the mathematical or the rigorous side of our business, which is just as important as the kind of intuitive side, because one doesn't work without the other. And I think we're at this really beautiful time in our business where the two genuinely mutually reinforce each other.
We keep talking about math. I'm very curious to know how you landed into advertising, how your journey actually started.
Because I was really bad at maths. So it is true, Harshit. I was so bad. Well, I mean, honestly, my parents were so not happy about it, because if it were up to them, I would not be in advertising. I would have gone to medical school, or I would have, I don't know, studied law or something like that, or So yeah, no, I got into advertising because I was from the very beginning, I knew that I was going to be in a very creative space. That is what I was passionate about. I mean, initially I wanted to study fashion, I wanted to study art, I wanted to study theater, I wanted to, study acting and all of that. And then it was all very kind of shocking and unsettling at the time. You can imagine in the early 90s, me saying all of this, and that was just very unsettling and so I kind of got into advertising through sheer grit and I just don't know. I mean, I just passion. I just wanted to be in it. I found a way to get into it, and then I had amazing people who gave me a chance and decided that I was good at it, and they lifted me up and they pushed me forward, and I'm forever grateful to all of them. Too many to name, but I just found all the right people. They could actually smell it and see it, and they were like, "No, you're in the right place." And then they looked after me and they just set me up.
No, it's great. I listened to my parents and decided to go to a med school, and then landed in advertising few years later.
Oh my God, yeah, there was a lot of, that's for another podcast. Let me just tell you, it was a full-blown high voltage drama situation. I was not a very, what shall I say, obedient child when I was 17 years old.
There have been one question that we have been attempting to answer for a very long time. Why does a physician prescribes what he prescribes? Right? Being a physician myself and coming from a family of physicians, I've asked this question to multiple people, and it is a very difficult thing because no one knows the answer. Right? It is it is easier to take a decision when you have to buy a mobile phone, right, or a TV screen or anything, even for a friend. Right? But here, you have to take decision for a patient whose life and death depends on that. Right? Do you just depend on science, which is the maths, you could say, that data to take that decision, or do you depend on emotions to take that decision, which could be the magic, right? Or as it is in media, right, Lord, you depend on the money to take that decision.
If you could give a QED answer to this, I think it would be horrible for all of us. I would feel really sad. Like, what? There's nothing. We're just not. Then we're all robots. So.
I agree. It should continue to stay unanswered. That people keep
like the question: what is beauty? What is love? What is magic? There are certain things that should always remain a little bit abstract.
Thank you so much, Harjot, for all the time and the magic, sharing your magic with me and with everyone who will be watching this show.
Thank you so much for having me, Harshit. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you. I always leave more enriched. So it goes both ways. Thank you so much for having me and including me. It's been great.
Thank you. The most interesting compliment that you've ever received from a client?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. The most interesting compliment, I was able to feed the entire marketing department of Allergan one day with curry. And they thought that was the best thing that they've ever done in their entire careers, was when I brought in chicken tikka masala, aloo gobi, some naan bread, some rice, and a little thing of lamb vindaloo for the marketing department as part of our opening. And they still remember it to this day. When you talk to, I ran into somebody the other day and they said, that food you brought in was incredible. What about the marketing campaign I did?